Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes to really wherever our whims take us. Queen Ivy. Oh yes, Poison Ivy no longer, for now at least. I get to say my favorite thing at the time of this recording. Poison Ivy is going through a bit of a rebrand, starting with the name but also apparently extending to the attitude. More like an amalgamation of previous attitudes combined. Ivy is an interesting character as she has gone through several evolutions, and a lot of them have been prompted by changes around her rather than herself as a character. People get very proprietary of Ivy and what they want her to represent or feel that she should or does. There's often emphasis on what she could be if someone doesn't agree with her current iteration. And this change is yet another example of that. We've been charting the course of Ivy on this channel, so of course we have to see her new form. Will this be her final form? Only time will tell. Will the name stick? Maybe, they don't have to. Thank God for that sometimes. Drake. So let's get into it. Before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you're feeling so inclined, hit that join button right down there next to the subscribe. It helps us create more content and you get some custom behind the scenes stuff as well as some little in-joke emojis and badges. But for now, we must bow to Queen Ivy. This name change, or the hints toward it, again we'll see if it sticks, occurred in 2020's Batman Joker Warzone. Batman the Joker Warzone. Can't forget the. This comic is a series of short one-shots of different events occurring in Gotham and to characters during the Joker War. Stories filling in gaps or expanding upon the concept. The cover has the tagline, "A dangerous collection of stories from the Gotham Warzone." To that I say, they can change the font sizing all they want to disorient, but I will not be menaced by neon pink outer stroke highlighting. This make me think that I've gone back in time to the 80s, forward in time to some cyberpunk era, or just to a red light district. We have the Joker and Batman split down the middle, the whole two sides of the same coin concept on the cover, because it doesn't look like the Joker's funky graffiti Tron style batsuit. It looks good and it is well drawn, but this design and concept have been done to death. You've seen it in other stories, adaptations, and definitely in fan art if you hang out in transformative fandom. So it may not have the huge impact for everybody they were hoping for. Kinda been there, seen that. Probably have a t-shirt. Batman and the Joker are also not the focal point of most of these stories, except for the first one. It's about the fallout that's been caused in their wake and the other characters, so some may feel a little bit misled. This Ivy story in question is the fourth of 5 stories contained in this comic. It's called Ashes of Eden. It's written by Sam Johns with art by Laura Braga. We open on Ivy entering Eden, a garden she had made. She enters because she senses and hears that there are people within. At first she assumes that it's Harley. The two had had a falling out at the time of this recording, so they're in one of their off phases of their relationship. However, it's not Harley, but a bunch of youths, potentially youths, middle-aged hooligans, bunch of people. They have embraced the Joker's message and are running around causing havoc in clown masks. All these stories giving clown masks a worse name than Gacy, or equally bad. Just clown masks are no longer something to be desired. Should we call her green or red? You should call her pissed. I see the litter on the ground. You have to be a brave, brave person to litter in front of Ivy. I think you should call for help. You see? Did the Joker send you?
It was his lady clown. We followed her down when...
So the location this story takes place in is the same as where we had our Harley Punchline rematch in issue 98, the 4th issue of the main Joker War storyline, where Punchline was briefly taken out by Batman in this great panel which made it look like the inside of his cape is lined with the word Batman. Gentlemen, I'm so sorry no one told you about the rules, but strictly no guests allowed. And so she raises it to the ground, burning the intruders alive. Oh, Harley, I can't rebuild Eden by myself. I mean, you could, but you don't really want to. Also, the biblical metaphor falls a bit flatter when there's only one person. Not that you can't use it, I've seen it done. Here we see that she is missing Harley, so perhaps they're sowing the seeds for their reconciliation. The pun was entirely intended. A female Joker crony shows up with beer, and I bet she's glad that they sent her on the beer run now. Just one invasive species can destroy an entire ecosystem. Please, don't kill me. Don't worry. I'm feeling nostalgic, and you remind me of somebody. Both so eager to squander your potential on a clown prince. I mean, I appreciate the reach, Ivy, I really do, but we don't know why this girl is here. Maybe she just wanted to hang with some friends or be cool. I mean, these masks look like they cost maybe about 50 cents to $2 at the dollar store. It may not be that deep. It was her responsibility to take care of this place, and now look at what's left. I let myself get distracted by pursuits of the flesh, but I forgot that humans aren't like plants. They're animals, mostly violent and always unpredictable. Plants always keep an even temperament. I think it's time to reevaluate my priorities. I tried giving the world a paradise, and now the only choice I have left is to raise hell. Excuse me, Ivy, one moment. Now, I enjoy a villainous monologue as much as the next captive person, but this is getting a bit on the nose, a bit telly and not showy, bit laying it out step by step. Should she be taking notes? Epipremnum aureum. Do you know why they call it devil's ivy? Because it's impossible to kill. But I prefer to call it by its other name, Queen Ivy. Okay, love Ivy on a throne. It's also an image that is often gone to, but sometimes classics are classics for a reason. Although when I was reading this and my husband wandered by, he did ask, so what, is she a geisha now? So perhaps not exactly the regal design they were going for, or maybe he's seeing what he wants to see. You decide. I'm not loving the robe, not gonna lie. The story ends with Ivy pondering how people trying to make change don't go deep enough, trying to implement change from the ground up, but really you have to get into the foundations. She says they won't know what hit them. All hail the potential return of villainous Ivy. Also, let us pray that it is a nuanced coming of Ivy and not one that beats us over the head with a hammer. Ivy has gone through some pretty distinct characterizations since her inception. From seductress, love interest for Batman, with a name that some were trying to convince me was inspired by a 1950s song of the same name, which admittedly I had not heard up until that point. But the song itself, which is also called Poison Ivy, is a metaphor or allegory or just tongue-in-cheek way of referencing venereal disease, with poison ivy being used as code, mostly for syphilis. Hence why you catch it and it never goes away. Maybe, I'm not convinced. I mean, perhaps that was the meaning, but if it was, it has definitely died hard. She was then your standard villainess looking for money, who happened to have plant powers. Later, the fact that she had been wronged by men would play more of a role. Later still, the environmentalism. She would become a misanthrope, eventually find one person she could tolerate, and eventually love. This relationship would vary in its depictions, from exasperation and also a little bit abusive in its own right, to idyllic love. Sometimes in the idyllic love scenario, Ivy would find herself completely subsumed, coming down with a near-terminal case of love interestitis. That's where your wants and character motivations vanish so that they can serve your partner's emotional pathos and their motivations, because they have been deemed the more popular and relevant character. Also, there was the fact that Harley and Ivy as a queer relationship are under more scrutiny, both internally and externally, which can lead to some worry when depicting them. The rationales for why people want Harley and Ivy together or not together are varied, and not as reductionist and cookie cutter as they're sometimes made out to be. Though that of course happens too. You'll get the whole they were never meant to be together, which I mean, you can say that about creators' intentions for a lot of things, but times change, different creators take over, and also audience expectations. A whole bunch of things can lead into why characters end up being depicted the way that they are. The intent or lack thereof is up for debate. But again, as mentioned in the Three Jokers video, people have very specific feelings about canon, and sometimes it's very ride or die, whatever the creator says goes. Sometimes it's I'll pick and choose what I want based on the stakes I have. And sometimes it's whatever, I do what I want. And of course, you do sometimes have sprinklings of homophobia, but again, rationales vary. You can't paint everyone with the same brush. There's also a tug of war when it comes to depicting anti-hero Ivy and villainous Ivy. That too has a whole bunch of baggage attached to it. This turn to Queen Ivy, set to continue in 2021, according to our ending text, could be an interesting one. Ivy, since the environmentalist angle was added to her character, has had the potential to be used in very interesting and poignant ways. Add to that her misanthropy, her disdain for most people, and her connection to the green, and you have the potential for something very layered and complex. In the hands of the right writer and creative team, she can be a powerhouse of a villain. And her relationship with Harley, no matter what it may be, together or not, also has the potential to be a fascinating exploration of the two. They both have such different outlooks and backstories and goals. You can go tragic, you can go them somehow finding a way to make it work. You can go looser, more on and off. They're together when they're together, they're not when they're not. You can go with them moving on, but still having a lingering love for that bittersweet connection. Again, there are some who are going to have issues with certain depictions based on histories and a whole bunch of other external societal influences. There's a lot to discuss. A lot. And you thought this was just a video about her name change. However it goes, I hope it is allowed to develop naturally and be all that it can be. Some may hope to one day be having a conversation about Ivy without having Harley included, just as how some hope to have a Harley conversation without the Joker included. Are either of those things possible? You let me know what you think down below. For example, some want Ivy to be prominent because they feel it's important that she's a woman in STEM. On to the name Queen Ivy. I don't know, when you're working with calling yourself a queen, it either ends up real regal and imposing, or just silly like a kid playing dress up? As for the plant itself, because of course I looked, yes, it is pretty much impossible to kill, and it stays green even in the dark, as she mentions. It can also be an invasive species when introduced in tropical regions, choking out other plant life. However, in temperate regions, it is a houseplant. Quake in fear at the potted plant? Make sure to water it daily. I mean, I don't know if you actually have to water it daily. For those of you who have it as a houseplant, let me know. It also has several other names: golden pothos, Ceylon creeper, hunter's robe, ivy arum, money plant, silver vine, marble queen, and taro vine. So many choices for Pamela. What do you think of the name? Regal and imposing or houseplant? I'm more down to see what they're gonna do with the character than the name change itself. Let me know how you like your ivy down below. Villainous and bitter, anti-hero and in love, some combination thereof. There are many options. I want you to share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things like share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.